Hello, today we are with Lisa Shahin, Advocacy and Research Officer at the Arab Group for Protection of Nature. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today. I wanted to start off if you can explain the biggest challenges, climate challenges that Palestine is currently facing in the context of your work with APN.
Yes, thank you so much, Joy, for the invitation and for giving us the opportunity to present the experience and the knowledge that we've accumulated over the past 2 decades of fieldwork and research. We are an independent civil society organization concerned with the protection of the environment in the Arab region, while also seeking to enhance the Arab people's capacity to protect and establish sovereignty over their food systems and natural resources. And going back to your question, it's clear that almost everyone in the world is affected by the impacts of climate change nowadays, but we all know that not everyone suffers equally. Unfortunately, those who contribute the least are the ones who are disproportionately affected. And that is the case in Palestine. Despite Palestinians generating only zero point 0.6 tons of carbon dioxide per year, which is a stark contrast to the 6 millions produced by an average Israeli, Palestinians are considered to be among the least climate resilient populations in the world. And as climate change intensifies, Palestine will continue to be exposed to climate change risks, and that includes a number of different threats, including increased aridity, risks of drought, unpredictable rainfall, water scarcity, food insecurity, and poverty. But of course, we can't talk about these challenges without recognizing the occupation that Palestinians live under. And this occupation, it exploits the environment, it strips Palestinians of their land, water, and natural resources, and it completely destroys their climate resilience.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, for the analysis. I was wondering if you can go into more detail as to what aspects of the occupation at an institutional level allow for these inequalities to occur in terms of resource access.
Yeah. So the occupation implies so many different tactics that have a direct impact on climate vulnerability. And it's important to note here that a lot of these tactics aim at forcing Palestinians to forego their rights, and it prevents them from becoming self sufficient and independent. So I want to first focus on agriculture. And because of the settlements and the military zones, Palestinians are restricted from 40% of the West Bank, and that includes 55% of the fertile Jordan Valley. Also, the occupation imposed a buffer zone on 35% of Gaza's arable land and has limited access to just 15% of the Mediterranean Sea. And Israel carries out routine attacks on Palestinian agricultural infrastructure. And actually, the majority of the Israeli attacks in the West Bank, they target the agricultural sector, and then that is followed by attacks on the water and the energy production sectors. And of course, all of this has a compounded effect on food production. And this, of course, has devastating impacts on rural Palestinian communities who depend on agriculture as their main source of income. And trees, unfortunately, are the primary victims. Since 2000, since the second Intifada, Israel has uprooted over 3 million trees, and they have replaced these trees with colonial landscapes and foreign invasive species. And these new forests, which are forbidden to the indigenous Palestinians, they destroy the soil and they severely disrupt local biodiversity and increases vulnerability to fires. And in terms of water resources, all Palestinian surface, ground, and rainwater is under Israeli occupation. And Israel blocks access to the Jordan River and it usurps more than 80% of the aquifer's flow. It also prohibits the construction of wells and destroys water infrastructure, including rainfall collection facilities. So Palestinians are then forced to buy their stolen water at inflated rates. And if we're talking about the West Bank, illegal settlers receive 4 times more water than Palestinians, who receive less than the minimum standard set by the World Health Organization. And in Gaza, before the current events, 97% of the drinking water was considered unsafe for drinking due to the continuous bombing of the water infrastructure and because of the sanctions that were placed by the occupation, which prohibit the entry of building material for rehabilitation. And the lack of water treatment plants forced Palestinians to throw the sewage to be discharged into the Mediterranean Sea. And this has, of course, disastrous impacts on the quality of water, and it caused severe disruption of the marine ecosystem. And as a result, Gaza's children, who make up maybe 47% of the population, drink polluted water. And 50% of children suffer from waterborne diseases, of whom 12% tragically do not survive. Additionally, Israel systematically poisons Palestinian water and soil through frequent herbicide spraying, razing, and they steal fertile soil. The occupation also incentivizes the dumping and processing of untreated hazardous wastes within the West Bank, causing serious health problems to Palestinians. And Israel's relentless bombing of Gaza has also left substantial contamination from sewage and lethal military ammunition. And these tactics have been on full display now for the past 3 months, considering the current events unfolding in Palestine. Since about before October 2023, 64% of Gazans suffered from moderate to severe food insecurity. And this can be attributed to the calorie count that was created by the Israeli occupation in early 2008 to limit the food intake of Gazans to levels slightly above death by starvation. But what we're seeing right now is that the idea is to reach death by starvation. According to a report published by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the entire population of about 2.2 million people is now facing acute hunger. And while it's premature to fully understand the extent of losses to the different sectors in Gaza, the first hand images and the videos that we're seeing shared by the people from Gaza on the ground, they vividly depict the scale and severity of these damages. And these are not only limited or immediate losses that can be easily compensated, but it's a series of prolonged setbacks deliberately inflicted by the occupation. And of course, all of this has a direct impact on climate change. Not only does it completely destroy Palestinians' resilience, it also has a direct impact on accelerating climate change. A recent study revealed that the emissions from Israel's war in Gaza has immense effect on the climate crisis, and that the first months of the war produced more greenhouse gases than 20 climate vulnerable countries do in 1 year. And unfortunately, what is often being overlooked right now in the media is that there is a parallel war being waged against Palestinians in the West Bank, in what we describe as the Harvest War. And the main goal of this war is to displace the people of the West Bank. So, since October, and just like the past 75 years, the occupation has escalated its aggression in the West Bank. And these attacks, as documented by the Palestinian government, which was published in a report in December, they take many different diverse forms, including burning orchids and buildings, uprooting trees, stealing harvest, equipment, and fodder. There were also cases of bulldozing Palestinian land to build colonial infrastructure, including 13,000 planned settler housing units. They also block water sources, they isolate and pollute water springs in Palestinian villages, and they're destroying water infrastructure and solar panels. They even stole livestock, like the 70 cows that were kidnapped in Tubas. So, as a result of these attacks, the Palestinian agricultural sector during October to December 2023 amounted to $22 million. And plant production, particularly in the olive sector, ranked at the forefront, representing 94% of overall losses. So I think now we have a better understanding of how the occupation employs different tactics and enforces policies that not only destroy resilience, but it also accelerates climate change.
Strictly from a climate policy perspective and all the documents that exist that Israel has signed on to uphold their responsibility to mitigating climate risks, where do these harsh measures fall in those documents? And, when you talk about sanctioning and the restriction of goods and movements and contamination, all these measures, uh, are there any specific clauses or mechanisms from the international community that holds these actions accountable?
Yeah, I mean, there are international laws that prohibit the use of the environment as a war tactic. And there is international law to protect the environment during armed conflict. If we can see that in the Protocol 1 of the Geneva Protocol.
I wanted to move on to the flip side of this in terms of any success stories you can shed light on, and how the international community has facilitated these successes, especially at the nonprofit level, and the engagement and adaptation measures you've taken for climate change in Palestine.
Yes. I think I'll just give like a few recommendations to start with. We believe that to successfully adapt to and mitigate climate change, it's very important to prioritize rural development as a central focus within both national and regional policies. And it's also very important to promote local food systems to achieve economic, social, and political stability and sovereignty. It's local community ownership and inclusive collaboration spanning from establishing priorities and strategies to reaching to implementation and monitoring is critical to ensuring the success of climate change adaptation and mitigation. And also, when we're talking about tree planting, we need to make sure that climate resilient and drought resistant productive species are being cultivated, which could simultaneously deliver environmental, socioeconomic, developmental, and food security goals for the local community. And these are exactly the objectives of our programs at APN. So we have two major tree planting programs. We have the Green Caravan in Jordan, and we have the Million Tree Campaign in Palestine. And the Million Tree Campaign, we plant Palestinian trees uprooted by the occupation and rehabilitates land to strengthen Palestinians' resilience and provide them with a sustainable source of income. And so far, since we launched in 2001, we have successfully planted over 2.9 million trees in Palestine for over 40,000 farmers who support around quarter of a million family members. And what we ensure is that we plant trees with high nutritional, economic, and cultural value to restore Palestinian sovereignty over their food and economy, while also combating climate change and environmental degradation. And we've also led many projects to support food sovereignty, including construction of wells, cultivation of indigenous seeds, and support to animal husbandry. We've also worked on advocacy as part of our food sovereignty program, which aims to influence policies relating to food, agriculture, and the environment on a national, regional, and international level through our membership and engagement in different platforms. And we've been successful in submitting resolutions that have been passed, which hold the occupation accountable for some of the environmental violations that have been committed.